Hey, it's you, man, from KC95 here. Good evening and welcome to Toasted Tavern. Your host, Scott Tobin, and the man called Wags are ready to bring you the night in sports. So pull up a stool, grab a drink, and let's get toasted.
And good evening and welcome into the Toasted Tavern. I am Wags, joined alongside by my good buddy, Scott Tobin. Been about a week since we got a chance to join you guys. Last week we talked a lot about a couple of guys that might have been coming to St. Louis. One did not. The other one's still a bit up in the air. That's kind of the premise of tonight's show, is really all about Major League Baseball and the upcoming trade deadline, which is coming up on Tuesday, August 2nd. But Scott, how are you doing? I think we both have about a week that we've been able to kind of relax from the Matthew Tkachuk thing, but still stay excited about possibly Juan Soto. And obviously, the rain has come to St. Louis as well, and thankfully the Cardinals weren't in town to witness that and maybe have a couple games moved and canceled.
Oh my gosh, man! I hope, as you bring that up, I hope everybody out there is safe and dry and comfortable in their homes, because the rain in St. Louis has been absolutely nuts this week. I mean, I didn't experience a whole lot of it on Tuesday. We were kind of on the outskirts of that, didn't get a whole lot. I know your area around your house got hit pretty hard. Did you guys have any flood damage or anything from that?
Not at my house, no, which is nice because we've actually had a flooded basement in the last couple of years. So to be able to avoid that was really nice. We didn't have a ton of issues. It was more so the 70 Mid-Rivers area, which got hit really, really hard. I know a couple of years ago when we had some big rain, 70 flooded, which is something I had never experienced before. But it once again happened in that Mid-Rivers area around 70. So that got hit hard. But thankfully, we did not. And expressing the same opinion and thoughts as you. Hope everybody is safe and sound and getting things back to normal. It's, for people that have flooded out, it's not fun.
No, it's not. And then, you get through it on Tuesday, and then, hey, wait, it happened again today. And I was downtown this afternoon, man. And like all of a sudden you look up and it's just black. And I had some stuff to do. I was down at the ballpark dealing with some stuff this afternoon and got ready to leave. And like downtown, it was pouring down rain. But then you like look to the west and you look at 40, and the sky was green. There was lightning everywhere. And it was like, holy crap, they're getting pounded. And so I get on 44 and start driving, and it's like, okay, I'm going to drive out of this. Well, then I get almost to Webster, and I make that turn as you head towards Webster and go down the hill of 44 there. And all of a sudden, I couldn't see like 10 feet in front of me. It was raining so hard that I literally could not see the brake lights. Everybody had their hazards on because you couldn't see brake lights. It was raining so hard, and there was so much water. Cars would go in the other lanes. And there was so much sitting water on 44 that it would literally come up and go over the roof of your car.
Oh,
it was it was absolutely crazy. And it was like that way for a good 20 miles. And again, 40 flooded right outside of downtown again today. There were places on Washington Avenue and on Delmar Loop that literally had 2 or 3 feet of water in their businesses this afternoon. So again, just wishing all those people good luck, and hopefully things dry out, and hopefully it didn't ruin businesses, ruin people's homes. Hope everybody's safe. I know there were some people stranded in their cars. Again, people had to rescue them because their cars were floating. And so just a scary situation, man, because you and I have both done enough radio and done enough rural radio where I know I laugh every time I hear it because I had to say it so many times, but turn around, don't drown is a serious thing.
It really, really is. There were even some reporters that had to be rescued from this on Tuesday. So yeah, it's no joke. So anytime you get into these situations, and we're still in tornado season and all that stuff as well. And yes, as Midwesterners, we kind of laugh and scoff at all that kind of stuff, but it really is serious. And if you're ever in those instances where, you're near flooding or you're in a tornado warning or anything like that, definitely heed the warnings as much as you possibly can, because it is something that's very, very serious and something you definitely need to do to save yourself and others as well. So make sure you heed those warnings. Please, 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 please. Okay, so we talked about that. We talked about our lives and how we're kind of getting through some stuff. And now we get to turn our attention to really what's been, I guess, gripping St. Louis the last week or so, really. It's been kind of floated out there for the last couple weeks, but it really, since our show last Thursday, it's really taken off as far as this whole Juan Soto to St. Louis thing. And we actually put up a poll on our Twitter page yesterday. And I'll say this: we got some responses.
We did.
We got some responses. We heard a Major League Baseball radio rumor yesterday that the Cardinals were offering Dylan Carlson, Nolan Gorman, Juan Yepez for Juan Soto. Now there's other pieces to that. Patrick Corbin was going to be thrown in that as well. Maybe a minor league prospect, one of the lower end ones, not the high ones like a Walker or a Mason Wynn. And we put this out there and said, hey, do you make this deal? We thought, okay, we're going to get some responses. We're going to get some votes. What have nearly 3,700 of you came out and responded with your thoughts on this trade proposal or trade rumor that is out there. 74% of people said yes, they'd make that deal in a heartbeat, while just 25% said no. And we got some really interesting responses that we're going to go through here in just a little bit as well. But first off, Scott, the rumor seems a little light to me, but with Patrick Corbin being a part of it, it makes a little bit more sense. You kind of talked me through that a little bit yesterday, but what are your thoughts on this rumor that we heard yesterday on MLB radio? And is it still the leading rumor for Juan Soto and the Cardinals?
Everybody you hear, everybody's got a different idea of what that package could look like. Mike Rizzo, the Nationals GM, came out yesterday and said, that Patrick Corbin he didn't name Patrick Corbin. He just basically came out and said that they wouldn't throw a bad contract into the Soto trade because he wanted to get as much as possible if they move Soto. Do you believe that? Is that just him coming out and saying something for the Nationals fans so that they don't get all upset? And then at the end of the day, you say, okay, well, he makes that move with Corbin in it and says, well, that's the best deal we could get. Plus, we were able to move that dead contract. It's hard to decipher GM talk this time of the year because they're not going to tell you exactly what they're really thinking. Man, there are so many rumors and so many different things and so many different people. Everybody's putting out their opinion. I've seen so many different trade proposals today with the Cardinals and Soto. And the funny thing is, you hear all these other teams involved, but you're not seeing trade proposal ideas for the other teams that are supposedly involved, which makes me think, again, it's all speculation and who knows. But the fact that there's not proposals being thrown out there what the other teams would give up, are the Cardinals truly the team that is in the driver's seat of this thing?
It almost feels like they are. I mean, like you said, no one else has really put anything out there. You've also got the fact that one of the big suitors out there, the Yankees, traded for Benintendi yesterday. So that almost puts them out of the running, although officially they're still in it. But at this point, do they have the potential, prospects and guys to move in that deal? The Padres are another big one that are in on Juan Soto. They just had some pitchers go down as well the last couple of days. But there's also been rumors that they're shifting their attention to a guy like Shohei Ohtani, who the Angels aren't necessarily looking at moving, but are listening for moving. You can't necessarily say we're not going to move anybody, but still actively listen. It means you're shopping him. You're not actively shopping him, but you're shopping him. So, do the Padres pivot to the Angels because it feels like the Cardinals and Nats are going to make this deal? Or, Joey Gallo is also another guy that's been linked to the Padres as well. So, those two teams were kind of the top contenders with the Cardinals for Juan Soto, but it seems like the Yankees are out and the Padres may be, pivoting to another direction. So we had a comment come up on this actual poll about it, basically saying that, Washington doesn't seem to have a whole lot of leverage in this situation. And it's seemingly coming out that it might be true that they think they have a ton of leverage, but they really don't. And it makes this proposed rumor deal make a little bit more sense now, because you're not trading away your top end prospects, which you really don't want to give away 1, 3, 4, 6 or what have you for a guy like Juan Soto. Yes, it hurts your team a little bit right now because Carlson's holding down center field while Harrison Bader is still out with an injury. And yes, Nolan Gorman has been powerful up here, but his batting average has dropped a little bit since he's come up. Juan Yepez hasn't really even gotten a shot, I don't think, in the last couple of weeks to really prove what he is as well. So it almost feels like if the Nationals are really just adamant about moving him, that the Cardinals actually have more leverage than the Nationals do at this point.
Well, the leverage that the Nationals have is that they don't have to trade him. I mean, they don't have to ever trade him. They can hold on to him and for 2.5 years and then, see what happens when he becomes a free agent. That's not smart on their part because they have nobody in their minor league system that's ready and their team's not very good. So, I don't think they do that. And if you move him right now with you're not going to get more for him if you wait, because right now you're going to get the most for him because you've got 2.5 years. If you wait till the off season, then he's only got 2 years. If the longer you wait, the less you're going to get because the less controllable time he has. So from that aspect, this is the time to move him because you're going to get the most for him more than likely. Although you could make the argument that if you wait till the offseason, more teams may be involved and then maybe you can jack up the asking price. Although I'm not sure that that's 100% true. And I'm not sure how many teams, even if you go to the offseason, are going to be involved because then you do have that less half of a year that you've lost of control when you're pretty sure that after 2 years he's going to go to free agency and you're going to have to fight that. I mean, there's no guarantees. I mean, definitely no guarantees that he's going to sign with anybody before he hits free agency. And chances are he's not with Scott Boras being his agent. So, I think the Cardinals have a pretty good shot at this if Mo's willing to pull the trigger. That's the big question. Is John Mozeliak willing to pull the trigger, not just on Juan Soto, but on any of these guys that we've talked about, Frankie Montez, Luis Castillo? There's rumors that Shane Bieber could be available in Cleveland. There's rumors that Pablo Lopez could be available in Miami. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there all of a sudden that could be available. I mean, yeah, the asking price is going to be absorbent for any of those guys, astronomical probably for a couple of them. But, if you want to win and you want to make a move, and the Cardinals need to, you're going to have to give up some of those prospects, and you can't just keep hoarding all these prospects. I mean, where are you going to play all these guys? Can't have 7 guys that play the same position and looking around going, now what do we do? I mean, you're running out of spots for guys. So Mo needs to make a move, and, we're going to see. It's going to be interesting because we're going to Washington this weekend, so we're all going to get a really good look at Juan Soto for the next 3 days. Who knows? Maybe he's on the plane coming back to St. Louis on Monday morning. Wouldn't that be an unbelievable moment for Cardinal fans?
That would be a nice parting gift, I guess you would say, in that. And I kind of want to – there's 2 different directions that are branching out from what you just said. And I want to start first off with the fact that you're talking about the prospects and where these guys are going to play and all that kind of stuff. And you've seen people just railing about, you got to keep these prospects, blah, 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 blah. Well, someone put up just earlier today, really, just what the Cardinals prospect farm system was like just a few years ago when they were still ranked number 1. And you go through it and there's only like 1 or 2 guys that A, had success at the major league level, and B, it wasn't even sustained success as well. So you're basically trying, it's a crapshoot. It's a lottery ticket for these prospects. And then on the flip side, you're getting a known quantity in a Juan Soto. It's not like he's been around for a year or 2 and you're like, maybe is he? Yes, his batting average is down. He's hitting 243 this year, but you're getting a guy that's going to hit for power, a guy that actually walks too. Okay. This guy had 145 walks last year. That's pretty damn good for a young power hitter. Yes, there were some intentionals in there as well, but for a guy that's Juan Soto, you're not going to see a guy get 145 walks because normally he's swinging and striking out a bunch of times as well. So you're getting a proven commodity for lottery tickets that may or may not pan out. Now, I'll say this for the Cardinals prospects. The ones they have now seem to have much higher ceilings than the guys even just 4 or 5 years ago that were down there. So it is a little bit more of not a sure thing lottery ticket, but a lottery ticket that very likely is going to get you're going to hit maybe a $100,000 winner instead of $1 million winner, but you're still hitting a winner in those instances. So that's a piece that you have to look at as well.
Yeah, you do. Like you said, these are definitely higher ceiling guys than we had a few years ago. But again, you're talking about Juan Soto, who is, probably the best player of his generation. And we're not talking about a guy who's 30 or 31 that, is kind of towards the end of his prime and you're going to get a couple of years and then he's going to kind of go over the hill. You're talking about a guy who's 23. Very seldom in the history of baseball has a guy who's been this talented become a free or been available for a trade when they're 23 years old. I mean, it just doesn't happen. You talk about the comps for what Juan Soto's did. You're talking about guys like Mike Trout. You're talking about guys like Ted Williams and Ken Griffey Jr. and Albert Pujols. I mean, you're talking about guys like that in the early years of their career that were the best. Miguel Cabrera, guys like that who were superstars when they were really young and some of the best hitters we've ever seen. So, I mean, he's a generational type player. So, I mean, you say, oh, man, you can't give up these prospects, but you're getting back almost a prospect yourself. You got to realize that, Juan Soto is he's less than a year older than Dylan Carlson. I mean, he's only a couple of years older than Walker and Wynn. I mean, it's not like you're trading youth for a grizzled veteran. So that's something that you have to look at that makes this a little bit different than normal. Again, it just comes back to what you're going to have to give up. I saw somebody put out a trade proposal today that had one of the ones I saw today. I think Hector Gomez put it out from ESPN, and it had Dylan Carlson, Nolan Gorman, Alec Burleson, Wynn, Giuseppe, and there was another prospect in there. And it's like, man, that might almost be too much. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're the Cardinals that you can give up Dylan Carlson and Alec Burleson for one big reason. You have to be a little bit worried about Harrison Bader with his foot problem right now. You're not sure. You get plantar fasciitis, that can be a serious problem, especially for a guy who counts on his speed to be such a huge part of his game. We know Bader's now been shut down for weeks. Who knows if we're going to see Harrison Bader the rest of this season? So I don't know that you can trade two of those guys, because then you look at it and you go, okay, our outfield is Tyler O'Neill and Soto and who? If you move Burleson as well. I mean, if you move Carlson and you have Burleson, then you're like, okay, we can bring Burleson up and we're okay. If you don't, then you're going, okay, we have Tyler O'Neill and we have Soto, but who's our third outfielder? Is it Lars Nootbaar? I don't know how great you feel about that every day. Or, I mean, you could throw Tommy Edman out there, I guess, if you wanted to. Or Brendan Donovan. Or, here's a really fun idea. Let's have Juan Yepes play the outfield every day when he's healthy. And the thing about that is you can't count on that either, because he's out with a forearm strain and has had a setback trying to throw. So, so there's a question about when he's going to be eligible to come back. So, it would make your outfield pretty thin if you had to move both of those guys. So I don't know that I would go with that package. But, whatever you do, if you make that trade, it is going to hurt a little bit. And then you have to look at it and go, okay, we got Juan Soto. Great. Now who's going to go out there and pitch? Because we got Adam Wainwright and we got Miles Michaelis, and then we got how's your arm, Wags? Can you go out there every fifth day?
I could probably throw an Ephus pitch here or there. I mean, I could probably get the ball over the plate. I don't know if that would be a good thing or bad, but I could get out there. But they're not signing me. I can tell you that much. And the fact that they haven't brought up, a Matthew Liberatore and put him into the rotation officially, or any of these other guys that are down in the farm system, just shows you that it's a very interesting question and conundrum that they have as far as the pitching is concerned. And yes, Patrick Corbin's a guy that gets thrown into this, but he's not an answer in any way, shape, or form. I believe he's like 1-5 or something in his last 7 starts. Didn't even get through the first inning against the Dodgers last night. Gave up 7 runs, 6 of those earned. So you're not going to have that. And we talked a little bit about, they're still in for the Frankie Montoses and these other guys. Noah Syndergaard's a guy that has been mentioned as well. There's also, other names. Rodon is a guy that's put out there. You mentioned a few as well, but it's a matter of what are they looking at? Are they waiting to finalize a Soto deal before going out and getting pitching? Or are they going to say, or are they able to handle two things at once? Because that's going to be very, very difficult, because you may have to use some of these guys in a Soto trade that a team may want for one of these pitchers as well. So that's another piece you have to look at as well, is what's a deadline in a sense for a Soto deal. Obviously the deadline's on Tuesday, but can you wait that long to finalize that and still go out and find a pitcher?
I mean, you can't just be focused on Soto. You have to be working on multiple things at once to see, because like you said, you can't wait and say, okay, we're putting all our eggs in the Soto basket. And then you get to Tuesday and he goes somewhere else or he doesn't get traded. And then you're like, oh crap, we got to pivot to a starting pitcher. Oh, wait, all those guys are already gone too. Now what do we do? So you definitely have to be multitasking when it comes to this. Let me ask you a question. What do you think about this? And I heard a couple of people talking about it on the radio today. Because everybody's saying, oh, man, Juan Soto, but then that doesn't help you. But you can't because you can't get pitching. Well, you could. You're not going to be able to get Montas or Castillo and Juan Soto. But what if I told you could get Juan Soto and you could get Noah Syndergaard and you could get Blackburn from the A's? And that could be your trade deadline. You get Soto and you get basically a 3 and a 4. Would you be okay with that?
I think I would, because Syndergaard's a guy that comes in with experience and a maturity about him. So you're almost getting not a younger Lester or Happ situation, but you're getting something along those lines like they had last year. And they've shown success at being able to pull guys off the quote unquote scrap heap and make it work. But I think it's a little bit more high end scrap with those two guys. But it solidifies the back end. I think that's the biggest thing is the back end of the rotation has been where things have really fallen apart and really put a lot of pressure on the bullpen. So if you can get guys that can solidify that 3-4, yeah, I mean, putting Wainwright and Michaelis as your 1-2 isn't ideal, but Miles Michaelis has been great this year. He really has. And I am not going to go as far as to say I trust him, but I am okay with him being our number one. And as Darkness puts out, Syndergaard, he has the upside to be a 1 or 2 as well. So if you're able to get him in here and get him to work with Mike Maddox and get him a part of the pageantry of the Cardinals, you might have another guy that can slide into that role if need be. And that way Wainwright can slide down to the 3 spot, kind of be your stopper in a sense, and then see what you got with the rest. I would be good with that because it gives your offense the pop, because you put Juan Soto with Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. I don't care who you're facing. That's a pretty potent 2-3-4, 3-4-5, wherever you put them. Your pitching doesn't have to be phenomenal. As long as if they give up 2 to 3 runs a game, I'm good with that.
Yeah. And as far as Syndergaard goes, he does have some upside. I mean, we're not talking about the Noah Syndergaard of 3 or 4 years ago that was blowing everybody away. He doesn't have the fastball that he had a few years ago. He's turned into more of a ground ball pitcher. He's throwing more
that
of
suits the Cardinals, doesn't it?
It does. He's throwing more of a 4-seam than the 2-seam. He's throwing more of a sinker. I think he could be a 2 or a 3. I'm not sure that he's a 1 at this point, but I think he could be a 2 or a 3. And then if you could get Blackburn from the A's as well, I mean, he's had a really good year. And, and those are two guys, they're both basically rentals. They're both going to be free agents at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. Syndergaard is owed about $7 million. So I think if you went to the Angels and gave them a lower level prospect and took most of that paycheck on, I don't think it's going to cost you a whole lot as far as prospects. The same thing with the A's, because Oakland's not anywhere close to being ready to compete for anything. So I think if you gave them a couple of your, maybe a 25th or 26th ranked prospect, something along those lines for a guy who they're not going to bring back next year anyway, I think you could probably pull that off, and it doesn't really kill you if you make the Soto trade. And then, I think you're in pretty good shape, honestly, because then you can move guys back to the bullpen who don't need to be in your starting rotation. And all of a sudden, things starting to the bullpen becomes a strength again. Your rotation is at least solid. Hopefully Dakota Hudson bounces back. He's going to pitch tomorrow. Hopefully we see some signs from him. And, a lot of people scoff when you say this, but the biggest thing that might fix this rotation in a lot of ways is a guy who's coming back on Tuesday. And he doesn't pitch, but he wears number 4, and he's a pretty big impact behind the plate. And if you don't believe that, their runs almost is a half a run, almost 3/4 of a run better when Yadi's catching than it is when he's not. I mean, he makes a huge difference. And imagine, him working with a guy like Noah Syndergaard or one of these guys that you're trying to bring back, trying to kind of resurrect. I know Syndergaard's kind of resurrected on his own, but put him with Yadi and see what happens. I've even made the case that, who knows what happens if Patrick Corbin would be part of that trade and you put him with Yadi. Remember when everybody threw a fit when we brought in Jay Happ and John Lester last year? And what did they do? Go 9-3 down the stretch, and you don't make the postseason without them. So Yachty makes a huge difference, and he's going to help some of those young guys in the bullpen as well. And he's a calming influence on this team. He just is. So that's going to make a huge difference as well. And, if you make a couple of those moves, this team could really make a run. I know a lot of people laugh at that right now and say they're not good enough, but a couple of moves and you are right back in there. The other way, okay, let's flip real quick. So we talked about if you get Soto, you go cheap on pitching. If you don't get Juan Soto, then you have to turn around and say, okay, we have to go get a Frankie Montas. We have to go get a Luis Castillo. We have to go get a Shane Bieber. You need to go get one of those guys, and then you have to look at a bat again. Maybe that at that point you look at a guy like Trey Mancini in Baltimore, one of those guys that you can bring in and can be a bat. And I see that Yachty got pulled in his rehab assignment tonight. Hopefully that's just a precautionary thing and nothing else. That would be a huge blow to the Cardinals. We can't have guys making rehab assignments and getting hurt immediately, a la Steven Matz running after a foul ball, a slow roller down the first baseline like a maniac for some reason the other night, and that was rough to watch. But I digress. Back to the Cardinals trade deadline. You've got to make a big impact move one way or the other, whether it's Soto or whether you go get one of those starting pitchers. And either way, you really need to get two pitchers. Whether you go high end with one and then like a Syndergaard on the other end and a small bat, or if you go Soto and then the two other bats. Either way.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, you have to make a big impact, and people continuously forget, and I do as well, because, I mean, you're a Cardinal fan, you're a Blues fan. We all know, just disappointment. It runs in our blood. Hell, we're Mizzou fans, and you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. So, I mean, like, there's so much just negativity that runs through our veins when it comes to sports that we forget we're still within a handful of games of the Brewers for first place. Paul Goldschmidt's having an MVP quality season. Nolan Arenado has really kind of solidified himself and settled in here. You've got a guy like Dylan Carlson, who, if he doesn't get moved, is going to be great. It's been great this year. He's really, upped his game here in the last couple of weeks. I think in his last 15 games, he's hitting somewhere north of 350. So, he's done that. You've been without Yachty for a couple of weeks now, and it's a guy that, yes, it's at the end of his career essentially, and you're not sure how much you're going to get from him down the stretch, but it's still him, Wainwright, and Albert, so something special is going to happen as the year goes on. Albert's starting to heat up a little bit as well. So, like, all of this negativity that we feel and that we're like, oh, doom and gloom if we don't get this, they really are right there in it. And if you do make some sort of significant move, it does put them up there in the top of maybe the top four teams in all of the National League. Because it's not like the Dodgers are running away with things. It's not like the Padres are running away with things. The Mets, the Braves, I mean, nobody's really running away with anything in the National League right now. And if you pull a move to bring in a Juan Soto, or you flip it around, you go out there and you get a couple of high-end pitchers, and then you do get a bat, all of a sudden they are right there. Yes, you still have to play the games, but it does signify that this team is willing to make that move because, as we saw in a couple of these responses to the tweets, with Soto, something.
Sorry, could you say that again?
No,
My
I can't.
apologies.
I can't say that again. I apologize, Siri. Just these are some of the responses to the poll we ran, but nope, you have to sign Soto to a massive extension, which we all know the front office will never do. Soto can't pitch. Corbin's awful. Obviously, that's in there as well. Cards are too cheap to sign Soto. So you've got these things that people are saying that kind of are true in a sense, but if they do make this move, it'll signify to me that this team really is moving in that direction. Bill DeWitt III even came out a couple weeks ago and said that they are very likely going to make some sort of big move and spend some money. So we haven't seen it yet, but everything is pointing to them doing it. Now they just have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, and there's no reason not to do it. Michelle Spallman on 101, I'm going to steal her line. She's been saying this for a couple of weeks now. If not now, when? Yeah. Like you said, you've got Goldie having an MVP season. Nolan's having a year where he could be in the MVP conversation. Yachty, Waino, Yachty, Albert, last run. You've got guys like Carlson and Tyler O'Neill and all these guys. If you're not going to make that move now to solidify this team and make the postseason run, when are you going to do it? Are you going to do it next year when you've got a rookie catcher and you don't have Wainwright, and you don't have Albert, and you don't have – I mean, this is the year that you really need to go all in and try to win. And I saw that one of the messages you put up was a no to Soto, and it said a 1-year rental. Well, that's not the case because it's 2.5 years if you get him at least. And there's no guarantees that he won't come here and play and love it and decide that he wants to stay. And maybe the Cardinals do throw that money at him because – people say, oh, they won't do it. But at that point, he's going to be 26. It's not like he's 30-year-old Albert Pujols or, 33-year-old Matt Holliday at the end of his career when they let him walk, or, Matt Carpenter when we threw $50 million at him when he was 34 and over the hill. This would be a totally different situation. So I think he would be one of those guys where you do say, okay, I don't see them giving him 14 or 15 years. I would not do that at that point. But I think you could say, okay, we'll give you 8 or 9 years at, $45 million and let's see what happens. I think the Cardinals would be players at that point. And if they're not, here's the other thing. You have him for this postseason run. You have him for next year. If you get to that third year and you get to the All-Star break and you just know that there's no way you're going to sign him, guess what?
You can trade
him. And you're still going to get a ton for him, even for a half-a-year rental. And you'd still be able to receive some of the prospects that you lost in the trade to get him. So, there are a lot of ways to look at this.
And the big thing, Goldie's deal ends right around the time Soto's does. So, any money that you would, put towards a Goldie extension, you could use for Soto as well. That's a really, really good point. And you talk about you coming here and experiencing it. You saw the interaction he had with Albert Pujols at the home run derby. That he has had conversations, I'm sure, with Yadier Molina, and it's just a tight knit group that if you brought him here and gotten him into that clubhouse, and yes, Scott Boras is his agent. Once again, that is out there, but having those relationships and having those ambassadors as well, and then coming into the sea of red, he's not going to really be changing much but a shade or two in the red category. So he's going to get to experience the Cardinal crowd as well. It's another piece that might sway him in that aspect as well. And like you said, you have 2.5 years. You've got at least 2 playoff runs, if not 3. If you can go out there and win a championship or 2 in those years, A, I call that a win. B, it gives him that, holy cow, we can win here, and what an experience a World Series parade here is in St. Louis. That might be another piece that adds to it as well. So there's a whole lot that can go right for Juan Soto here in St. Louis. And I think really Kyle Eden says it all. To his answer to that poll question, yes is in blue, and yellow is yes, but in yellow. That's all you really need to know about how people feel about Juan Soto potentially coming to the Cardinals. That's really all you need to know. And I kind of also want to bring up a couple of things you talked about. What if it doesn't happen? All right. Our friend Blues Fan reacts. If the Soto deal doesn't happen, what about a pitcher-hitter package like Dylan Cease and Lurie Garcia? They both have tremendous years, but both are a little overlooked as, the Sox have been bad this year. Could you look at some sort of pitcher-hitter combination from a team that solves some of that without having to spend a ton of money and a ton of prospects?
Yeah, you could. You definitely could. You look around, there are going to be some things that you could look at. That would be a possibility that you could definitely look at. Same thing. We talked about Trey Mancini in Baltimore. Yep. You could look at Mancini and Jordan Lyles, a couple of the pitchers in Baltimore that are available. That could possibly be a package you could look at. You could look at Oakland. There's been talk about Montas and maybe their catcher being a possibility as a combination. So there are different places that you could look and see. There are a lot of things out there, and there's going to be a lot more rumors, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they do. They just have to do something. John Mozeliak cannot sit on his hands this trade deadline and not do anything because there's just no excuse for it at this point. You have to make a run. It's been too many years since you've made that big move at the trade deadline.
Yeah, you really have. And another piece of that puzzle is the fact that Paul DeJong is being essentially called up. Darkness is a bit surprised he's being called up. It means either Sosa or Gorman is gone. And there's a couple of different pieces that go along with that. Paul DeJong is being called up to the taxi squad for this series against Washington, which for all intents and purposes will mean he's on the big league club here very, very shortly. And yes, Gorman is drawing interest in the Juan Soto trade, so there is that possible reason why Paul DeJong's being called up. But the other reason is Edmundo Sosa is getting a little bit of traction in trade talk as well, which is a bit surprising. Derek Gould reported today that an AL West team is showing interest in Edmundo Sosa, who hasn't had a great year this year. And I hear AL West and I go, okay, well, maybe that's Oakland. Maybe they are wanting a cost-controlled young player that can come in and play a position. Why not the Texas Rangers too? Matt Carpenter was there. Maybe he passed along some good news or some good notes to them, and they're looking at somebody that can come into that spot as well. But what are your thoughts on an Edmundo Sosa trade? Because that kind of came out of the blue today. I didn't even know his name was even being considered, and all of a sudden an AL West team has interest.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that too. I mean, I know that he doesn't have any minor league options left, so. It's basically trade him or lose him if you don't want to keep him on the roster, and he's been pretty awful. Yeah, the Rangers are possible, although, they did go get a couple of shortstops in free agency and spend a lot of money there. So, I mean, Oakland would make some sense. He's a young player that would be cost-controlled and,
It's Oakland, so.
Yeah, he could grow and learn, and, who knows. I think the thing about Sosa, everybody was so excited about him last year because he did do some good things. But I think there was a lot you should have realized when John Mozeliak basically said, yep, this is pretty much the peak of Edmundo Sosa. This is not going to see anything better than what we're seeing right now. Yeah, I mean, he can be exciting. He can. We saw him have a couple of triples in back-to-back games, but then he can make some really good plays, and then you can see him make some really boneheaded plays at shortstop and miss balls and throw balls away, and he's striking out at an absorbent rate this year. You talk about Paul DeJong's strikeout rate. Sosa's is higher than DeJong's was. And I mean, you watch him, and he's up there just swinging from his heels at everything. So, if you could get something for him, I don't know that you're going to be able to get a whole lot for him. Maybe you could get a bullpen piece, although that's even questionable. It's probably like a low-level minor leaguer that you're going to get in return for him. But it would clear a roster spot, and, at some point, you got to see what Paul DeJong can do. I mean, you really do, because you've got him under contract for a couple more years, and you're paying him a bunch of money, and he's torn the cover off the ball in Memphis. I know it's Memphis. But, you look what he's done the last couple of weeks, and he's hitting at a really high clip. I think his batting average is like 350 over the last 2.5, 3 weeks. And he's hit a ton of home runs. He's up to like 18 now in the minor leagues. So, I mean, even if you bring him up and you put him on the bench and he plays every other day and he gives you that pop off the bench, I think he could be a contributor. I think he could help this team down the stretch. And who knows? Maybe he figures something out down there and you bring him up and he goes on a tear and, especially if you are going to move a Gorman, then you put him back at shortstop and you put Tommy Edman at second and, Donovan can play the outfield if he has to or whatever. It is an answer. So we'll just see. I think something has to happen with Paul DeJong in the next couple of weeks. And, maybe Paul DeJong gets traded. I don't really think so because I don't think his trade value, even though he's torn it up in Memphis, I don't think he's got a whole lot of trade value right now until he shows that he can do it up here.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, he was hitting well under 200 when the Cardinals sent him down to Memphis. His first week or so at Memphis wasn't all that great, but in his time down there, he slashed a 249, 313, 552. He's hit 17 home runs and driven in 54. So, like you said, it is Memphis, but still, if you produce at Memphis, that means you have opportunities to produce at the major league level as well. So I think you're right on the head there. He's going to be a part of this team in the next week or so, whether it's because some guys have been traded or it's just that part where, hey, it's time to bring them up and see what we got to see what we can use for the stretch run as well. So Paul DeJong is going to be a part of this team here in the next week or so. And, going back to your point about the trade deadline, about what Mozeliak has to do, Blues Fan Reacts is right on. Mo owes it to Yadi and Waino and really Albert too, a really, really good shot at a final farewell. If he does nothing this deadline, it's almost a slap in the face. And he also writes, you might as well, right? And that's exactly what it is. I mean, you brought these guys back. Well, okay, I'll backtrack just a touch because I'm not in the head of John Mozeliak or the Cardinals, ownership or anything like that. me as a fan looks at it and go, okay, the Cardinals brought back these three guys for a final farewell, a chance to go for a championship and to win one more time. Maybe they brought him back in just to sell some tickets. I don't think that's the full mindset of the Cardinals organization. It's there, obviously, but I feel like, yes, they brought these guys for one final hurrah. And if you don't go out and find a way to make this team better to get them to that point, it's 100% a slap in the face because you're just basically trying to print money.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Yachty wouldn't have come back. Albert wouldn't have come back here if they didn't want to at least try to win one more time. Yeah. You can say, oh, they wanted the hoopla and whatever and the money. But no, those guys are competitive. They've made all their money. They've gotten all the hoopla and all that stuff. It was about a chance to win one last time in St. Louis, when they looked around and saw Goldschmidt and Arenado. And, and I think they do have that shot. And then, when you hear Nolan come out last week and say, okay, we need to make a move at the deadline. We need to do something to make this team just a little bit better, to push it over the edge, because we've got the talent here, but I don't want to be in the wild card series. I want to have a shot to win the division. I want to have a shot to go far in the postseason. And, I think he used the media to send a message to John Mozeliak at that point that, hey, and I don't think he'll do it, but you got to remember that there is that opt-out there, that if he's not happy, if he doesn't feel like this team is going to try to win, he could leave. I mean, like I said, I don't think he'll do that. I think he's happy here, and I think he wants to be here. But if you feel like ownership and your general manager aren't going to give you the tools you need to make this team a championship team, then maybe he does go, hey, you know what? The Dodgers probably could use a third baseman. I'm from LA. Because Justin Turner is getting older. I mean, hell, I know the Padres have kinds of infielders, but, they love to make another big splash. They're just going to spend like $800 million on their payroll, and it's crazy, man. But I think the Cardinals really do need to do something this year to just prove to the players, to show those guys, hey, we are doing everything we can to help you guys win and make this a special season.
Well, having one of your star players come out and say, hey, I'm sick of being a wild card team. It's a good push in that direction. Probably not the greatest timing on his parts, because he said that, I think, on Saturday, and then him and Goldie were out in the 2 games in Toronto due to the vaccination. That was a whole uproar and hoopla, and people are, the fact that all of this came into sports and all that was, I pretty much stayed off of Twitter, I think, on Monday and Tuesday, just because really didn't want to hear about any of that crap that was going on when it comes to, vaccination statuses and all that kind of stuff. And, I don't want to dive too deep into this because it's a very, very touchy subject with a lot of people, but that struck a nerve with a lot of fans on both sides, really.
Yeah, it did, and you saw a lot of people going, oh, man, this is going to cause a divide in the team. They're going to lose the clubhouse, blah, blah, blah. The other guys knew this was going to happen. They all knew who was vaccinated. They understood. It's not an issue. It is their choice. I know people get upset because, oh, they get paid money. That's your job. Well, guess what? They didn't get paid for those 2 days. That was a decision that they made that they thought was best for them and their families, and it is what it is, and hopefully we don't have to play the Blue Jays in the postseason and don't have them in the World Series. Let's cross our fingers that doesn't happen. But, other than that, it happened and you move past it. I think, and I know people were upset on Sunday and Monday, but I think the fact that you split that series and you won last night and Albert had the big game and Waino pitched the way Waino can pitch, I think that took a lot of the fan hostility away. And I think people went, oh, okay, we split that series, which is probably what you would have done even if you would have had Goldie and Arenado, because, neither one of them are Jordan Hicks out there walking people and loading bases and all of that stuff. That's another story that we can get into. But, yeah, it is what it is. It was their choice, and everybody just needs to move on and deal with it, basically.
Yeah, they'll get standing ovations when they come back, and they'll have fans cheering for them when they hit home runs. It's it's going to be a story that gets lost here in about 2 days when Juan Soto's traded to the Cardinals. We'll just leave it at that. So let's keep it a little bit. Well, okay, before we move on to a couple of other pieces that we've kind of already discussed, but I want to hit back on. You brought up Trey Mancini a little while ago, and before we came on, I was scrolling through Twitter, and he had a little bit of a Matt Holliday moment today in Baltimore. As you guys, as Cardinals fans know, Matt Holliday last at bat as a Cardinal, hit the home run, tears flowing, everything was going crazy. Well, today, Trey Mancini had that moment as well. Potential final at bat as an Oriole in Baltimore, hits an inside the park home run, hits off the head of the outfielder, rolls into the corner. Dude's just chugging. I mean, you can see he gets to the end, and you're just like, oh, please, please. The catcher has the ball in his hand. And when I was watching, I almost felt like the catcher was like, I can tag him, but I don't want to, because he ended up tagging like the near side of the plate before reaching over to try and tag him. It was a little weird at the end there, but Mancini in his final at bat, an inside the park home run. I asked you before the show, was that something that's a little bit more amazing than what Matt Holliday did? Because Holliday just had to trot around the bases. Mancini had to book it.
He did. Still a special moment because Trey Mancini's been a huge player for the Orioles. You know, he was kind of the face of that franchise, the only good player they had for a while. And then the health issues that he had to deal with, and the fact that he was able to bounce back and is even playing Major League Baseball right now is a big deal. And so for him to go out in Baltimore like that, if it is his last at bat, you know, that was a special moment that he won't forget. And I'm sure Orioles fans that were there won't forget.
That's very, very true. Okay, quickly, I want to talk about somebody that we brought up that the Padres were kind of keying in on a little bit. Shohei Ohtani. Okay, the Angels aren't necessarily shopping him, but they're listening on offers for him. And that was really intriguing to me because he's a guy that's pitching and hitting for them. He's one of their top players. Obviously, you can get a lot for him. Mike Trout has been injured. A new, revelation in his injury came up, and it makes you sit there and go, okay, are they opening up to trading Ohtani because they feel like Trout's not going to be around and they really need to start looking at potentially rebuilding? I mean, where did all this kind of come from? And is it possible you see a Shohei Ohtani deal, maybe not at this deadline, but maybe in the offseason?
Oh, I think it's possible. It wouldn't 100% shock me if it happened at the trade deadline, because if there's a team that's going to throw every prospect they have at somebody to make a trade, it will be the San Diego Padres. I mean, we've seen them do it a bunch of times the last few years. It hasn't really worked out for them, but they keep doing it. Yeah. And I mean, if you're the Angels, I mean, you have to look at it and go, okay, maybe we need to move Ohtani. With what we've learned now in the last couple of days of Mike Trout, they very possibly wasted one of the greatest players of the last decade's careers, because when you start talking about a chronic back thing that's a rare issue that you're going to have to deal with and really watch the rest of his career, I mean, that doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound like Mike Trout. And we know from things we saw with Matt Holliday and Matt Carpenter what back injuries can do to players, especially with their power. And if Mike Trout's not able to steal and slide and run and swing freely, he's not the same player. So if you're the Angels, yeah, I think you have to start thinking, okay, we've spent all this money and brought all these guys in and it hasn't worked. Our biggest chip is Shohei Ohtani. And especially without Mike Trout, we have no chance of winning anytime in the near future. So maybe we do need to move Ohtani and see what we can get before he gets to free agency and he leaves us. So, yeah, I think it's very possible. And like I said, I think the Padres may be the team that does it. I was reading today, did you see Mike Clevenger and, every pitcher that they have are all going to be free agents at the same time? All these high-end pitchers, I think Clevenger and Darvish and somebody else, and they're talking about trading Blake Snell now at the trade deadline. I mean, it's like, how many pitchers have they gone out and gotten in the last 2 years? And none of them have worked out. And now they're like, oh, they're all going to be free agents. Let's go spend a bunch more minor leaguers on Shohei Ohtani and see if we can bring him in. And then, as we've seen with Padres and their trade acquisitions, they'll go get Ohtani, give up 12 prospects. He'll pitch one inning and blow out his arm.
Pretty much. I mean, even Sean Manaea hasn't been great for them this year as well. He's struggled. So, yeah, they're if you're a pitcher, you almost don't want to get traded to San Diego, even if you want to go for the nice weather and all that jazz. It almost seems like it's a pitcher's graveyard in a sense. They just go there to get injured. And well, I mean, actually, maybe you do want to go there, get a minor injury, collect a whole lot of money without actually having to do anything. I'm going to start warming up and seeing if maybe the Padres want to sign me. I could deal with a little bit of a shoulder injury with a couple $1 million sitting in San Diego.
Well, I mean, think about that for a minute. I mean, Clevenger, we get him. He gets hurt. Blake Snell, we get him. He's not been good for 2 years. Hugh Darvish, we get him. He really hasn't been very good for 2 years. Has been hurt a couple times. Sean Manaea, we get him, and now he's hurt. He was solid for a while. Now he's hurt. I mean, it's just unbelievable. We spend all that money on Fernando Tatis. We signed him to that monster contract, and he's been hurt 60% of the time since we did it. I mean, nothing that they've done has worked. And it's not the first time we did it. Remember what was that, 4 or 5 years ago that they traded everybody and went out and got the Upton brothers, and they got who else did they bring in? They brought in a closer, and they brought in just like 8 or 9 players, and by the trade deadline they were trading them all because it all fell apart.
Well, and even back in the day when they, the year that they played the Yankees in the World Series, it was like one of those, it came together and then it flew apart as quickly as it came together. And they've done that a couple of different times over the last 20 years, in a sense, where they've tried to build a dynasty or build a super team in a sense, and just as quickly broken it down. I mean, they were looking to try and be the Marlins, but not the right direction that the Marlins were going. It almost seemed like they got guys on the other end versus where the Marlins were getting them on the front end, and it just never seemed to work for the Padres. I mean, I felt bad for Padre fans because they seem to always play us in the playoffs each year, and even when they had a great team, the Cardinals found a way to beat them. I mean, granted, the last series they had with them, they did eventually kind of get over the hump and beat them, but still, I mean, you got a team that maybe didn't even deserve to be there and took them to the bitter end in a sense. So, you almost feel for the Padres fans that, even when they try to do better, there's some sort of curse on them.
Yeah, well, just think about that 2006 Padres team. The Cardinals went in there and everybody laughed. Oh, this series is over. The Padres sweep this. Cardinals are done. The Cardinals swept them. The Cardinals took them out in 05 as well. They took them out in 96. I mean, yeah, the Cardinals definitely had the Padres number quite a few times in the postseason. So, you feel bad for the Padres. They want to be the Dodgers. They want to spend money and compete with LA. And it just seems like every move they make blows up in their face. Although Manny Machado has worked out pretty well for them to this point. But, nothing else really has. I mean, the Eric Hosmer deal hasn't been great. Will Myers hasn't been as good as they thought he was going to be. It just has not worked out for them. And it's like we said, it seems like they're willing to do it again because they're definitely talked about highly in Ohtani chase. There are also rumors that they're in on Soto. So we'll see if they make another huge splash. But, sometimes spending all that money and just compiling superstars doesn't make a team and doesn't guarantee that you're going to win.
That is very, very true. Well, the trade deadline coming up on Tuesday, August 2nd, 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central. So a mid-afternoon, early evening deadline, which I think we talked a little bit about this last year. It just doesn't feel right when it comes to Major League Baseball. I remember back in my middle school and high school days, literally staying up till midnight for the trade deadline, just watching ESPN. I mean, it just doesn't have the same feel for some reason.
No, it doesn't. That was always high drama when you were up till midnight watching the minutes tick away. But it's not the same. This year will be interesting though because the Cardinals will be home. They'll be starting a home stand next Tuesday against the Cubs, and then we'll see the Yankees and Matt Carpenter. And that's going to be an interesting few days with the Cubs and the Yankees rolling into town. There'll be some rowdy crowds and some big crowds at Busch Stadium. And just in time for the Cardinals to get home next week. They get home on Tuesday. On Wednesday, it's supposed to be 97 degrees with a heat index of like 105. So the Cardinals come home, the warm temperatures come back.
Welcome to St. Louis, Juan Soto. It's going to be fucking hot.
Yeah. Well, it'll feel like it does in the Dominican Republic. He'll think he's at home.
Hey, Cardinals bring home Juan Soto on Sunday evening after playing the Nationals, and then he gets to be unveiled Tuesday night against the Cubs at home. I mean, how could you not have a picture perfect scenario for like welcoming a guy to your town at home, first appearance against the rival? I mean, that's a storybook start right there.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool. Definitely, it definitely would. Let's just hope that it's Juan Soto or somebody that gets unveiled on Tuesday, because if they come home and John Mozeliak does nothing, or like the only move he makes is like one of the cheaper low end pitchers and goes, okay, we got one of those guys, fans will not be happy.
No, they will not, and they will definitely let him know. Well, Blues fans also had a bit of negativity pop up last week. We talked last Thursday about Matthew Tkachuk and the drama surrounding him. Well, the next day he ends up getting traded to the Florida Panthers for a collection of players: Jonathan Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weegar, Cole Schwint, and a lottery-protected first-round pick in 2025. And then he signs an 8-year, $76 million contract. Broke Blues fans' hearts. All that stuff. People cried over the weekend. It was sad for sure. But we don't talk about this too long because it's been talked to death in a sense. But the Blues were never going to match that kind of deal for Matthew Tkachuk. So, you got a 115-point player, a top-pairing defenseman, and a young prospect and a first-round pick. Blues weren't going to be able to match that. And Calgary is sitting on a precipice of either really winning this trade or really losing this trade, because both Huberdeau and Weegar are unrestricted free agents after this year. So you have the potential of losing a career best 115-point player and a top-end defenseman after just 1 year. Granted, there's a couple options you can go, a couple directions. You can re-sign both of them, which if they do that, 100%, I think they win the trade because it sets their franchise up for sustained success longer. 2, you trade one or both of them at the deadline and get recoup some of the stuff that you ended up losing. Or C, they absolutely 100% lose the trade by letting both of these guys walk at the end of the year and not making the playoffs, which is a very distinct possibility. I just look at it and I go, okay, the Blues never would have matched that deal, but did Calgary do the best that they possibly could for Matthew Tkachuk, or was it just a matter of them wanting to make sure he was not in the Western Conference?
I think that was part of it. I think they didn't want him in the Western Conference. I think, like you said, you had the chance to get a guy who had 116 points and a good defenseman out of the deal. I think I think they looked at it and said, okay, these are the two best players we're going to possibly get out of this deal. We're not going to have to play you but a couple of times a year. We're not going to be in the same conference. And like you said, the Blues were not going to match that, especially since apparently Doug Armstrong had no interest in including Jordan Kyrou in that trade, which, we all thought was the thing that had to happen for that trade to work. So, yeah, I mean, I think Calgary did the best they could. Matthew Tkachuk put Florida as one of the teams that he was willing to go to. You can't blame him. Good for him. He got to go to South Beach and be a 24-year-old kid making $80 million living on South Beach. I mean, doesn't get a whole lot better than that.
No state income tax too.
No state income tax. That's a big thing as well. And then, if you're Matthew Tkachuk, you're probably looking around going, okay, it would be awesome to go home and play in St. Louis. I've dreamed about playing for the Blues since I was a little kid, since I threw that jersey on and skated around with my dad. But then he probably also looked around and saw how crazy everything was in St. Louis just with the thought of him coming here, and realized all those distractions, all the people calling him every day wanting tickets, and all the people wanting interviews, and all the people, there would just be so much that came along with it. He wouldn't be able to go anywhere in St. Louis. People would be following him, people would be watching him. Literally just like David Freese was when, at the end of his career after 2011, he didn't have any peace to himself. And I think that's probably part of it. I think he probably saw all of that. His dad probably talked to him about that a little bit. And so, it was the best deal he could. The thing that I don't understand is the people that are just attacking Matthew Tkachuk like, oh, screw Tkachuk. We hate that guy. He didn't want to come to St. Louis. He turned his back on his home. He didn't have any control over where Calgary traded him. He didn't say, hey, I'm not going to St. Louis. We all know that he would have loved to come here. But Calgary did what was best for them. It's not like Kachuk was like, screw St. Louis, I'm not going home. So the fan venom towards him and towards his family. I even saw somebody attacking his dad, boo Keith Kachuk from now on. I hate that guy because, his family turned their back on St. Louis. They're from Boston anyway, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, calm down. Why would anybody want to come play here if that's your response?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I mean, all the conversations that I saw, Robert Thomas was trying to recruit him. He had other guys that were, talking about him playing here, and it never came out that he was like, I didn't want to play here. The conversations were, hey, yeah, it would have been a lot of fun, but it just didn't work out that way. And he did not have control of where he was going to go. Calgary had to get the best deal that they possibly could. And honestly, he did Calgary a complete solid by saying he wasn't going to sign an extension because it told them, hey, I'm not going to be here longer, so might as well trade me. He didn't outright say trade me. But what he did was said, I'm not signing an extension, which made Calgary go, okay, we're not going to have to wait to the deadline and see if he's going to be here. We're not going to wait an entire year and lose him for nothing. They were able to go out and get stuff and prepare themselves for a full season with the trade that they made for, with Matthew Tkachuk. So you got to give him credit there. And yeah, to the fans that say he betrayed St. Louis or anything like that, come on, man. Get over it. This team is going to be fine. Yes, Doug Armstrong definitely has to make a few moves because we don't know the Tarasenko situation. And obviously there's too many defensemen on this team that make a lot of money. So a deal or two still has to be made, and there's still plenty of time to do it. If you're going to put any vitriol at anybody, you don't even necessarily put it at Doug Armstrong because yeah, he kind of put himself in this position, but he's also done well to maneuver himself out of this as well. So I'm still giving him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, although it's starting to creep a little bit more towards the John Mozeliak territory of maybe not necessarily making a move that he should have made. There's still they're getting closer. I'll just put it that way. They're getting much, much closer.
Yeah, and I think a lot of fans are upset and frustrated because there's a lot of fans that are still upset about David Perron. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people said, okay, well, you're going to be upset about David Perron, but wait till Matthew Tkachuk gets here, and then you'll forget all about it. And, then that didn't happen either. It was like, oh, for sure David Perron's coming back. No doubter David Perron's coming back. Oh, wait, David Perron's not coming back. We never made an offer. Matthew Tkachuk's going to be a Blue. No doubt about it. That trade's going to get done. Matthew Tkachuk's coming back to St. Louis. Oh, wait, no, didn't really make a competitive offer there. I can see where Blues fans feel a little bit disappointed and a little bit lied to. I mean, in some sense, because, you were kind of sold a bill of goods that, okay, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. And it didn't. And then you look around and go, okay, that didn't happen. What's our counter move to that? Oh, wait, we don't really have one. So, like you said, the offseason's not over. Maybe Army comes up with something. I don't really know how he does it right now, but, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will see what happens. Like I said, still plenty of time to have something happen, and we'll definitely keep our ears to the ground on that. A couple other notes before we get out of here, real quickly. DK Metcalf signs an extension with the Seattle Seahawks, 3 years, $72 million. He was participating in a hold-in where he was at practice but not actually practicing. A couple of days of that, the team was able to work out an extension with him. The dude's got 29 touchdowns in 3 years. He's a bit of a beast. And Seattle did right by only limiting it to 3 years with the wear and tear on his body and the way wide receivers kind of are interchangeable. I think it's a great deal for Seattle. And it's also a good deal for Metcalf as well because he gets some security, $58.2 million guaranteed. He gets a chance to make the big bucks and still have the ability to make more a little bit longer down the line if he continues to be productive. I think it's a really, really good move for Seattle, but who's going to throw to him?
That is the question. Drew Lock, baby, all day long. Look out. That's pretty much your only option at this point. A lot of money. Metcalf has been good, but he got a lot of guaranteed money. It'll be interesting to see if he can put up the kind of numbers to justify that with Drew Lock or whoever is throwing the ball to him. What's going to be really interesting now is to see what Deebo Samuel gets because he was held out of training camp as his agents and the team apparently are working on an extension. So he's looking at what Metcalf just got and is going, okay, that's good. I want more. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It's crazy, man. Some of these signing bonuses that some of these guys are getting in the NFL, and just the salaries, just the way they've exploded at quarterback and wide receiver the last couple of years in the league is kind of nuts.
It's insane. It really is. You see what Tyreek Hill got down in Miami, and just the fact that you're seeing some of these highly productive wide receivers changing teams so frequently as well, because franchises are seeing younger players that can do the same things for cheaper, and they are being productive. I mean, you look at what Jamar Chase did over there in Cincinnati. I mean, just it is interesting to see how, once again, the game is evolving and changing a little bit. We've seen, running backs have taken that back seat, although I feel like that running back position may come back around here very, very soon as well, because the wide receiver position has exploded. The tight ends have kind of backed away a little bit, but I feel like you're going to see tight ends maybe cycle around at some point here in the near future as well. You're just seeing that evolution of the game. And right now it's still slated at the quarterback and now the wide receiver position. Who's to say it's going to be something completely different in the next 5 years? It very well could be. So you got that. And really, you're going to be able to see some of this stuff here at the local level as well, because you got a Division I team now locally here with Lindenwood moving into the D1 the D1 ranks. And I had to shamelessly plug, because I go there and I'm a part of the broadcasting group there and all that. Football tickets are on sale now. Okay. Go to LindenwoodLions.com, get some football tickets for this year. They got some great games. You're going to see SEMO up here. You're going to see Murray State here. You're going to see McKendree and William Jewell up here as well. 5 home games, 2-time GLVC champions, 2019, 2021 Division II playoff participants. First year in the OVC, Lindenwood, a D1 school. Make sure you get your tickets.
Get out there to see the Murray State Racers, baby.
The last time, because I believe they're switching from the OVC. So you're going to get a chance to see them, and then they're out the door. But, yeah, it should be a lot of fun this year, and we got a lot of fun stuff coming up as far as the Lions are concerned. So D1 sports here locally. It's not just SLU now. As far as D1 schools, you've got Lindenwood. Make sure you get out there and see them, and get out there and see SLU as well. I mean, the basketball team's great. They've got great soccer programs as well, baseball, so many great sports at the local level. Make sure you get out and see them, because that's where the next generation is coming from, and they need your support in order to get to the next level as well.
Yep, absolutely. And then, you can also go halfway across the state and see some really good wide receiver play at Mizzou, because Mizzou's got a couple pretty good ones coming in the next year. So Luther Burden and that group are going to be pretty impressive, and we'll see Mizzou hopefully start to make their return to prominence in the SEC over the next couple of years.
Well, let's just put it this way. I hope we see the Mizzou Claws before Texas and Oklahoma get back in here, so when they do get here, we can beat them down.
I think it's going to happen. I think Mizzou is going to be a power. Like I said, this year is going to be kind of a rebuilding, because you've got all these coming in, and next year I think you start to see the real rise. And then as they get to juniors in 2 years, I think you see them playing an SEC championship game. I've thrown that prediction out there. I really believe that. I think they've got the talent coming in the next 2 years that when you get to that, what would that be? The 2024 season, I guess. I think
this year, 2023. Yeah.
I think when you get to that 2024 season, I think you'll see them playing for an SEC championship. I really believe that.
If it's still considered the SEC, we have no idea. It could be a power conference that's got some other weird name. It might be the ACC, SEC, or something along those lines. Who knows what it's going to be in 2 years from now?
Yeah, the SEC is never going away. There's too many people down south that there would be a riot. We'd have another. Yeah, I'm not going to say what we'd have, but it would be another big battle if the SEC went away as naming rights down there.
That's very, very true. All right, you got anything else before we head out of here tonight?
Man, just everybody get ready for some craziness in baseball in the next couple of days as far as trade rumors. Get ready for the Cardinals to come home. Pay attention to Juan Soto this weekend. The next future Cardinals superstar, as he plays against the Cardinals, and hopefully we can sweep Washington. They need to sweep Washington this weekend. And other than that, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, I do have one thing. It is official. I know I drove everybody crazy in the fall last year talking about Real Men Wear Pink and the Cancer Society's breast cancer awareness, but I am officially going to be an ambassador again, and I gave them your information, so you may be getting a phone call here in the next few days as well. But I am definitely signed up and going to start pushing that, so everybody get ready for me to start bugging you to give money to a really great organization that does a lot of really, really good work in the American Cancer Society, and the breast cancer awareness and all of everything that they do is just amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah. And if we get to both be a part of it, that's great. And if not, at least we've got one person that's really pushing it. And we will definitely put out as much information on that as possible. I mean, I got a brand new suit. I mean, I got to wear it somewhere. So, might as well become an ambassador and raise some money for a good cause as well.
Throw that suit on. You can go down next month with me and do the photo shoot.
Ooh, I don't know if anybody really wants photos of me. It's hard enough to watch me on screen right now, right?
Oh, come on, man.
Oh, well, yeah. So you'll have all that information here in the coming weeks. So make sure you take a look at that when we get it out there. Like Scott said, keep your ears to the ground on the Juan Soto thing. When we hear something, we will push it out there to let you know what we know and what we hear. And the Cardinals are back in town next week, so you'll be able to we'll probably have at least one show next week, if not two. We'll see how things work out. Obviously, trade deadline on Tuesday is going to be a big deal. So just kind of keep a track of all your socials and follow us at the Toasted Tavern, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. Find out what we know when we know it, and interact with us as well. Like we said, almost 3,700 votes on our poll, reached well over 10,000 people on that as well. And we want to interact with you guys. So make sure you continue to interact with us, and we'll talk. That's all we want to do. We want to talk sports. It's what we want to do for a living. So we want to talk sports with you. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. For Scott, I am Wags. Stay cool out there. Stay safe. Enjoy the weather this weekend. Enjoy the Cardinals games against Washington. And hopefully next Tuesday, Juan Soto will be making his debut as a Cardinal against the Cubs. Until next time, have a great weekend.
Hey, it's you-man here from Casey. For all your sports news, catch the Toasted Tavern with Scott Tobin and the man called Wags, weeknights at 9 p.m. You can follow Toasted Tavern on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Let's get toasted.